Welcome to Investing Uncensored. I'm your host, Andre Stewart. You all know I love bringing on venture capitalists or people that can tell us how to raise capital, especially in this environment coming up. There's a lot of stuff going on with the economy, and Jeremy's going to break down, some of the strategies that he used to come up to a $1.5 billion in raising capital. And he's been doing this over 20 years. So it'd be great to get some insight from him, what he thinks about the economy and some of the ways that can help us, bring in some money to our business in the next couple of years. So Jeremy, how are you doing?
Mr. Stewart, I'm well. Nice to see you, my friend. How are you?
Good, good. Nice to see you as well. I'm happy you came on the show. I'm looking forward to talking to you and diving into how you came up to that 1.5 billion and what are some strategies that we can use. But first, can you just give us a quick breakdown about how you got into the industry and what made you stick with it so long?
Sure. How you got into the industry, I'd love to have a beautiful, wonderful story about it. It was a strategic plan and, all these wonderful things. And I think there's a lot of guys that have that story. Unfortunately, that's not mine. Mine has more been, just one foot in front of the other and kind of following green lights. And then, you get a little bit better and hopefully a little bit smarter today than I was yesterday. And hopefully tomorrow I'm smarter tomorrow than I am today. At least my wife hopes so, right? Started this business, it is kind of by accident in the early 2000s. Had a couple of entrepreneurial journeys, it is with my wife. Got into the real estate business for a little while, got kind of not tired of the real estate business, but not wanting to be, one of, 50,000 other guys in the state of Washington at the time trying to do real estate. And so started playing with, a different side of the beach ball in real estate and kind of looking at how the financial aspects of things came and how people were finding money it is outside of traditional banking. And just through kind of a course of events, got really good at kind of turning the dials of the Rubik's Cube to solve problems, right? Just kind of, getting all these different colors to match up and find solutions for either borrowers or bankers or developers or investors or otherwise. And over time, that kind of muscle, gets a little bit stronger. You get a little bit more, kind of focused and thoughtful about what it is that you're doing. And, kind of fast forward 20, almost 5 years later, we're approaching a little bit north of kind of $2 billion at this point in advisory and kind of placement work. I've started a few funds of our own. I've started investing off of my own balance sheet a little bit more. And so, again, I refer back to hopefully we're getting a little bit smarter today than we were, a few years ago. And maybe a few years from now, I'll be even smarter and good looking and all that other stuff. So who knows?
So then, I know you said you were in Seattle, you were at before you moved to where you are now. How did you raise this much capital in Seattle, or was it more so like a nationwide thing?
One of the things it is, I think most people, when it is that they're starting, you start, relatively local because that's where you work and that's where your kids go to school and play soccer. And so your network, if you will, or your kind of association and the people that is around you, whether it's for businesses it is that are growing or real estate guys and developers and otherwise, you're passing a certain project and you find out who that comes from, right? And so for me, it started kind of in Seattle, right? And got really good at kind of being involved in the community and being involved in associations and almost playing, kind of Chuck Woolery, right? You're making thoughtful introductions to prudent sources of capital that are hopefully going to make a difference in Joe's life or in John's life or in Mary's life and what they're trying to do, whether it's, develop apartment buildings or grow a software business or whatever it is that they're trying to do. And that was really just being purposely thoughtful. Like I was purposely getting involved in the community to make sure I could meet other people, get out of my own way and find out what they were about. So when next week I met somebody else, I could maybe thoughtfully connect people with purpose. That's how that started. And a lot of that for us early on was, we were working with home builders and developers and investors. So our business, this last 20, 25 years has probably been about half real estate and about half, what you'd call corporate capital, right? Non-real estate capital. This is growing software technology, healthcare, health tech, direct to consumer, professional services type businesses that you're raising money for. But when it started, it was primarily real estate. It was companies and builders and developers that weren't mom and dad with a Home Depot card and a hammer, kind of a guy, right? And it wasn't Toll Brothers or Hines or Beacon that had, 50,000 apartments. It was kind of the guys in between that were maybe doing 50 units to 500 units, and they didn't need mom and dad rich uncle capital, and they didn't need Apollo and KKR and Carlisle type capital. They needed something in between. And it was kind of like, my rich uncle won't call me back. My banker's an idiot. I still need $1 million. Now what the hell do I do? Right. So we got really good at the what the hell do I do capital.
I like that, because it is a lot of going to family members at first, and then they just fall off, or then they're just harassing you. And you're like, these are the timelines. And they still, you know what I mean? So that's a good idea. So then you were doing real estate. And then when did you kind of venture over into, I guess, the other spaces outside of real estate?
Sure. If depending upon, the audience here, is that if you think about this, there was a period of time that you've either heard about, read about, or lived through. That was GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, which was this time in 2008 where basically, mortgages were resetting. During that period of time, so our business started kind of end of 2001, beginning of 2002. And so for that kind of 5 or 6 years, we were 100% focused on real estate. During that time between 2008 and 2010, our relationships, or our clients, or who we were advising and raising money and placing money for, went from Bob the builder to Bob the banker, right? So now, rather than helping, Andre the developer go, build his next 50 units or do whatever he's trying to do, now I'm helping Andre the banker, saying, hey, we've got $100 or $200 million worth of non-performing assets. I don't know where half of it is. I don't know what any of it is worth. All I know is everything is upside down. How do I unscramble scrambled eggs? And so that gave us a really, really good purview of how the other side of the balance sheet thinks, right? And so we got smarter during that period of time, made an extraordinary group of connections for very smart professional investors that we still have relationships with 15 years later. But that's how that kind of transitioned and changed. And then coming out of 2010, as that world kind of settled, we started seeing a lot of the same issues in kind of growing small business, smaller enterprises, not small like meaning startup, but small meaning companies that were kind of 5 to 50, $5 to $75 million a year in revenue, that were running into the same issues that those old developers were 10 years ago. Is that I don't need bank and rich uncle and idiots at the golf club type money, right? Like I don't want to deal with those guys.
Right.
But the real large institutional capital, like that's cool, but they simply have too much money. I mean, you have to understand that there is a part of the world that no matter Andre and Jeremy's business, how cool we are and how much money we're making, and we've got a 10 or a 20 or a $50 million business, there are companies that simply cannot afford to write a $10 million check. They have too much capital.
Correct.
And so there's a world in between there, between the mom and dad rich uncle, type dough, and the institutional dough that is horribly fragmented. It's horribly disjointed. And we got pretty damn good at kind of solving problems in that space.
We're going to stay here for a quick second, but I want to go back to the part about the underperforming notes. So there's some, I don't know, maybe you can see, do you see any similarities with what's going on right now? Because the economy is starting to shift, right? Yeah. So I don't want to say we're going to have a 2008 again, but since you started your company kind of right before that happened, and you just mentioned a lot of underperforming notes, do you see any kind of similarities to what was going on then with what could be coming up for us right now?
Yeah, and the reality is it's worse. We're just
exactly.
Not talking about it.
Yeah.
So when we look at the level of reset and bailout and movies it is that were made coming out about this, right? Is that the total amount of that kind of 2008 bailout for mortgages was right around 800 billion was the number, which seems like all the money in the world, right? It was right around 800 billion in that kind of 2008, 2009 timeframe. What's happening right now is we are having what they've been talking about the last kind of 12 to 15 months that we're in the middle of right now and is continuing, is we have a what they're calling a commercial maturity cliff.
Yep.
And so 8 to 10 years ago, we had a a disordinate amount of originations it is in the CMBS market. It is that, 8 to 10 years later are now beginning to mature. And so you are coming out of a 3.5-ish% cost of capital into a 6.5 or a 7% cost of capital. And then cap rates have changed from a 4 or 4.5 now into a 6 or 6.5 or 7 type market it is. And those assets that yesterday were performing and had equity and were kicking ass and cash flowing are now all upside down and underwater.
Yep.
The value of that right now, they're estimating, is right around 3 trillion. So we are almost 3.5 to 4 times the size in a kind of a default moving through the belly of the beast right now. It is 3.5 to 4 times the size of what it is that we went through in 2008. And so, for example, one of our largest advisory clients right now has about 3 billion in assets as a single shareholder. They own about 40 towers in a major MSA on the West Coast. A lot of their maturities, either from CMBS or otherwise, a lot of their maturities are coming out and running into this now, to where they have a maturity default. The properties are 85 to 95% occupied, are cash flowing, are doing well, good tenants, good tenant mix, all the things it is that you want. But their cost of capital just went from 3.5 to 5.5 or 6. The value of those properties 3, 4, 5 years ago, was maybe a 4.5 cap for a major. Now it's a 6.25 to a 6.5. So what they had at $1.2 billion in equity is now subjectively potentially zero. And so how do you deal with that? That's one of 1,000 developers like that may have $1 billion in equity on paper that 5 years ago I would have cut off my left leg to have this guy's problems. Now it's like, shit, brother, we have some issues to address here. Right? It's tough.
So then what are you seeing potentially, because I'm on the same page as you, the residential side is not as bad, but what are you seeing that could potentially happen because the debt is so large and it's going to be so hard to refinance for a lot of these, major corporations in corporate real estate?
So you're seeing, a lot of that is happening certainly in the commercial and in the office space. It is happening in large multifamily as well. Now, that is primarily in the for rent type product. The large holders of multifamily or apartment units or build to rent type units, are running into that as well, because they have 3 or 5 year old paper that's now maturing. Interest rates are different than they were, and they're having to kind of reset that. For the individual who's renting an apartment in LA or Phoenix or Dallas or who whatever, the reality is it is relatively inconsequential for you as a renter, because it doesn't matter whether Andre owns it or Jeremy owns it or Bob owns it or whoever. It kind of doesn't matter. But for that owner, they're running into the same issues, right? Like, unless the bank or the lender is willing to play ball, so unless they're willing to recast, to extend it, to write down the value of that asset, some to allow new capital to come in and refresh it, or one thing or another, unless the parties have some degree of religion and reality about what's going on, those assets are going to default.
Correct.
Yeah, they just are.
So then, based on what you're saying, a lot of people may be tight with their money just because, not only the mom and pops, but major corporations are a lot of people that, used to give out capital. What kind of advice would you give to someone who's trying to do something that you did in a time frame similar to when you did yours in the beginning?
As far as raising capital, or as far
as raising capital? Yeah.
So this is the time, if we look back historically at any time, when there is big shifts in the market, this is the time to where it is that people make money. The fear, I think, most people have, or most people it is that have a degree of kind of education or visibility into kind of the macro of what's happening right now, is you're going to see, I believe, probably a further consolidation of wealth, which sucks to say. Nobody likes that. But in this world right now, to where it is that there's tremendous amount of opportunities that are coming, what it is that you're seeing is the BlackRocks and Carlyle and Apollo and State Street, Vanguard, and these guys that have a a big storehouse of kind of bullets in their gun. Now it's happy hunting time.
Yep.
And candidly, as cool and as smart and as good looking as you and I are, they got more money than we do, right? Right. And so that there's disproportionate opportunities it is that I think will consolidate wealth and control and power that way. And that pisses me off. I don't like that.
For sure.
I think for the average Joe, you and me, maybe some of the audience it is that is listening here, is there will be trickle down again opportunities here it is to take advantage of things like that. Because it's simply there will be there'll be opportunities like we talked about before, is that there's a certain part of the world it is that they can't play in because they just have too much money.
Too much money, yep.
Right? There's going to be a smaller group of folks it is that are too scared to do something. And so right now, if you can get the terms it is that you want on buying an asset, controlling an asset, getting into something, buying property, doing that kind of thing, and you can find capital to support it, now is a really good time to start being thoughtful about getting back into the market, I think, if you can buy it right.
Agreed. So then what would be two or three things, top three, I would say, that you did to start raising your first $1 million that someone can go out and do right now?
Yeah, I mean, so we did probably $1.2 billion or $1.3 billion in advisory and placement work. So as a hired gun to go solve problems for people before I ever raised $1 million of my own money. So about
let's stay there. Let's stay there real quick. So
yeah,
what you did was basically before you raised your own capital, you told people what to do with their money, and then it grew from that point.
Yeah. So we were a hired gun. So like a real estate broker, mortgage broker, whatever. We were a hired gun as kind of an investment bank or an advisory for Andre saying, hey, I'm trying to build X, do X, buy out my partner, get my next product to market. Here's what my business looks like. I need $5 or $8 or $10 or $20 million to go do this. I don't like my bank. My rich uncle put me on block, right? He won't call me back. And how do I solve this? Yeah. And so we got really, really good at kind of raising $5 to $50 million checks over a 20-year period of time that gave me candidly just a lot of reps in the gym for seeing how capital is raised, how it should be structured, how you should work with these companies. I did that for a long time before at the end of 19, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to start our own fund. I'm going to put my capital up to support it. And I'm going to take this, 15, 18, 20 years of deals it is that we've done. I'm going to take that experience, bring all my guys into the fund it is that we're going to run. And now we are going to begin to do from a principal position what historically we had done from an advisory or banker type position. And so we started raising our first funds, and just like everything else, you want to share what it is that you're excited about with your friends and your family and, the people associated with you, right? Mm-hmm. And just as you would expect, it says in the Bible, you're never a prophet in your own hometown.
Yeah.
I was never a prophet in my own hometown, right? And so we had better favor leveraging that experience, but we raised more capital it is with people it is that were new to us. And then after we had raised our first probably $40 or $50 million, then our friends, our family, our acquaintances, the people it is that we know go, okay, well, this is actually working now. So tell me what you're doing again, right? And then it accelerated from there.
So then I have so much experience with that rich uncle. So I laugh every time you say that because, man, that is so true, right? So then how could someone that has an expertise like you, they might not have, say they just have a business, great business acumen, or they might have a good financial background. How could someone start out like you did in the beginning and position themselves as that advisor that was going out and raising capital? How can they build that profile?
The reality is just start. I think one of the best things it is that I ever heard is everything is new until it isn't. Mm-hmm. And so if you or I decides it is today that I want to do X, whatever that X is. It really is just putting one foot in front of the other. And, I kind of joke affectionately about the fact it is that, hopefully tomorrow I'm smarter than I am today. And hopefully next week, the reality is if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to be, right? The expert was a beginner at one period of time, right? I'm pretty good at what it is that I do, but there was a time it is to where I was just learning. And so if there's somebody it is that wants to start something, the point is to start.
Correct.
Right? You don't have to have the expectation, and you shouldn't represent the expectation it is that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. You've been in business 5 minutes. You don't know shit. That's okay.
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
But be honorable, be thoughtful, work your ass off. And after you get a couple little things under your belt, all of those experiences, the reality is it does make you a little bit smarter. So when I do show up next week, I now have some experience to reference for that next conversation. Right. So when I sit down with Andre, 2 weeks from now it's Andre, let me tell you about what it is that we did for John 2 weeks ago. Here's the problem. Here's how we did it. Here's how we solved it. Here's what we did. My guess is, as for what you're working on, now I have some experience it is that I can move through. So the point, I think, for anybody that just wants to start is just start.
So true. People don't start. They have the idea, but they never actually get going. So I told a story where I'm like, there's 3 people sitting on a bench. One of them had the idea to get up and leave. How many people are still sitting on the bench? 3 people, because you can have the idea, but if you don't get up and go, you're still sitting there like the rest of everybody else.
Perfectly true.
So then with that, say someone, all right, they want to get going. Where do they find the first client? LinkedIn, or what would you suggest? Was it $500,000, or what's your sweet spot for someone starting out?
Well, so for us, we started doing smaller deals, right? Because candidly, anybody that wanted to do business with us, I needed the money, I needed the reps, I needed the practice, I needed the experience. So if you wanted to raise 200 grand, I'd do my best to go help you find 200 grand. Now that like we have a hard time doing deals for less than kind of 3 or 4 million. Like our current engagement for a client is last week we placed $450 million with a single client. Now that's
huge.
It's amazing, right? So that is the exception, not the rule. Most of our engagements are in this kind of $5 to $50 million range, right? And then off of our balance sheet, we're writing kind of 2 to 7, maybe $2 to $10 million checks. Our advisory business can go bigger, but where it is now, that you got to understand, that's 25 years later, right? Correct. When I started, it was great, 200 grand. Let's go figure out a way to solve that problem, right? The things it is that we found over time is that people tend to get more excited and more engaged and more intrigued about bigger deals than smaller deals.
So true.
They take roughly the same amount of effort and reps and time and energy and mental focus and all that kind of thing. But people will get out of bed for a bigger idea where sometimes raising less money is actually harder.
I agree with that. And you all might have heard a podcast where I talked about syndication. This is kind of along the lines of syndication when you're first starting out, because you're going to get the reps in. I've done deals where I've had to go out and raise, $100,000 to do one deal, and I raised it through a bunch of friends and family. But basically what Jeremy's saying is, do something like a $2 million deal and then go out and raise the money for that, because people might be more interested in the return that they're going to get. And they also want to be more associated with a deal like that versus some single family house in the neighborhood. I'm guessing that's what you're saying.
Yeah, it can be. $100,000 can be a ton of money to people, and then $100,000 to people can be a watch.
Correct.
Right? It really is. It's all perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so syndications, I think, are a great way to go. And I have some friends that have done extraordinarily well in syndications from, the last 5 years to the last 20 years. I'm horrible at syndications.
Mm-hmm.
I suck at it, right?
Yeah.
I'm really good at kind of structuring and placing and putting deals together, or structuring and raising my own money and investing. The individual, hey, Andre, let's go do a deal over here and raise $2 million for it and go get 10 checks for 100 grand a piece, or 20 for 50, or whatever the number is. Dude, I am dreadful at that.
Mm-hmm.
I have done it. I've done it successfully a number of times, but that, passing the hat and collecting chips and do it, dude, it's a tough business, dude.
Yeah. So would you rather do what you're doing? Like you just said, obviously you would, but like what would be the biggest difference between the two? Like you go out there and you find the deal and you structure the financing for that and you put your money into it, or how does that work for you all?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're doing two things. Is we're doing either purely just advisory and placement. Andre, John, Bob, whoever it is, or a company hires us and says, great, we need to solve this problem, whatever that is. We need to restructure our debt. We need to raise 50 million bucks. We need to do whatever that is. And then we will either organize, put that together, structure, and go place the capital for them and just take an advisory position. Or if we like the deal and we think that we can actually help further than just placing the capital, then we'll almost take more of kind of a merchant banking approach that says, okay, great. We really like Joe's business, Andre's business, whatever that is. We want to be more involved over the next kind of 2 or 3 or 4 years. They need 5 million bucks. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put up $1 million of it my own. And then we're going to bring in a couple of partners on the other kind of $4 million it is that we need. So we're going to take a more of a full-time kind of advisory position with the business. We're going to take equity in it. I'm going to help you grow over the next kind of 2 or 3 years. But I like the business enough that I'm going to put my own dough into it. So when I come to Andre and say, hey, we got this great company that's doing 1, 2, 3, XYZ, whatever it is that they're doing. Here's what we're raising. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to raise $5 million for it. And the first $1 million is mine.
So you all seeing that this is something that you can do. You're basically, if you have the intelligence to be able to go out and learn how to do this, which I'm going to ask Jeremy in a second, how he learned how to do it, for the knowledge base, but being able to go out there and have conversations, if you have the business acumen or the real estate acumen to be able to structure deals is what you really need to do, right? And then just networking for the other aspects of the business. But Jeremy, if you can give us, how'd you learn to do this? How'd you get the knowledge to be able to structure deals a certain way for it to be more advantageous for the person that you're trying to help?
Yeah, just reps, brother. I mean, it really is. You get smarter over time because you get more experience and more exposure from looking at deals, right?
So no schooling, no crazy.
No, I mean, so I
League.
I mean, we're north of 2 billion in transactions. I don't have a finance background. I'm not that smart. I'm not that good looking. Well, I mean, pretty smart, pretty good looking, but whatever, right? This will probably be audio only, so it's fine. But, a lot of it really was having a degree of humility. It is to just ask a lot of questions, right? Mm-hmm. Like if I'm sitting down and we're going through something with somebody and somebody uses a certain acronym or word, or they say, oh, well, we should do it this way and that kind of, okay, explain that to me. Mm-hmm. Andre, why are you thinking that way? Right? Mm-hmm. Like, let's just have every opportunity like that be a little mini classroom session. It is that I can learn something, because maybe there's a way it is that you're thinking about this that I didn't see. And so, Andre, from your perspective, why would you do that? Mm-hmm. Right? Like I just started learning like that. I went, this was well before, now podcasts are so prolific. Audiobooks are so prolific, but there was a time, young lad, to where you actually had to like show up and meet people in person, shit like that. You had to go to a networking event or read a book with like pages in it.
For sure.
And, I spent a lot of time there. I spent a lot of time going to, a local networking event that was specific for real estate or private equity or professional services or whatever it is. If there was law firms or CPA practices or something that were hosting an event with entrepreneurs and stuff, I wanted to go to just shake hands and meet people and see who they were and what they were doing and how they thought and what they were excited about, what they were scared of. Like I wanted to do that kind of stuff. I was reading books. I was listening to audiobooks that, used to be a CD in your car that's now a podcast or an audiobook. Like I wanted to do those kind of mental push-ups. So when it was actually time to show up, my brain was ready. Mm-hmm. And so I put a lot of time in there. And then honestly, it was just when you'd get down and it would be game time and I'd be meeting with, a guy who needed money and a guy who had money. And I'm kind of arbitrating and managing those conversations. I'm kind of listening to the patterns it is that happen, because the guy that needs to borrow money, most of those guys, regardless of what they do, they have the same kind of 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 questions.
Yep.
Most of the investors, it is, regardless of whether they're loaning money or investing equity, or whether it's a software business or a construction business or a home builder, they have kind of the same 6 to 8, 10 type of questions, right? So after I heard those questions 10 times, now I kind of know from each perspective how they're looking at things. And so I can head that stuff off before it happens, or I can kind of coach and guide and massage those conversations from both sides to bring those guys together. That is purely just time.
Yep.
It's just time in the arena. It's just time spending going over that. Because again, your fifth conversation, you're going to be smarter than your first. Your thousandth conversation, you're going to be smarter than your, 20th or whatever it is, right? It's just time. And so if you're willing to put in the time to listen to the books and go to the conferences and meet people and ask questions and have humility and just try to be genuine about those connections, like, dude, you're going to do great.
That's what investing in Uncensored is all about. Like, we talk about education because not everybody, and most people think wealthy people all came from a ton of money, right? They think everyone was rich, but it's more so like I was a banker for 10 years, but all the stuff that I learned was from putting the reps in outside of banking. Like, you don't get trained that much as a banker. You just got to go out there and do it. But me building a tech company, me building an InvestFar, me building anything that I've done was just through reps and just figuring out, watching videos on YouTube, listening to podcasts, doing exactly what you just said. So I want to know, for you, what did you do previously before you got into this? And did you come from a rich family, or did you just grind and make, do what people do?
Yeah, I was a model and actor. No, I wasn't at all. Nobody would hire me. Nobody wants pictures of me. No, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a doctor. Little bit of a science and a math nerd, loved Jacques Cousteau and Discovery Channel and all that shit growing up. Like I thought that I wanted to do that. Certainly didn't come from a wealthy family, not a poor family necessarily, but probably a lower middle class, normal kind of family. Moved around a ton as a kid. So went to first grade here and second grade here and third grade here and fourth grade, like that kind of growing up. But ultimately, when it came to it, is I wanted to just do something that I felt was different or differentiated. I wanted to do something to where it is that I felt like I was having an impact on other people, that I was helping, encouraging, and maybe doing something for people it is that were either overlooked or abandoned or not getting the attention that I felt that they deserved. Initially in my head, I thought that manifested into being a doctor, because I loved the science and all that kind of stuff aspect of it, but really wanted to have an impact and work with people and do things and feel that I wanted to feel respected and reverend and that kind of thing. And then as I matured kind of through that, I didn't want to be a doctor, but I wanted people to talk about me like you talked about the doctor in the community. I wanted to be respected like you were respected in that. And so that's kind of how that materialized and moved. And it just, God's got a weird way of kind of, guiding you through life, right? And so that actualization of all of those things materialized into a couple of small businesses that my wife and I started. There was a time before we started JB Capital, it is that I had, I think, 13 jobs in 3 years. Like I just, I wasn't cut out for that. There was a different path for me. And as those experiences kind of collect and kind of put everything together, it kind of forms and shapes the recipe of who it is that you are for going forward. And I think if not for all of that, JB would not have done what it's done.
And I want to point that out. Sometimes people need to recognize that they can't be employees. I was one of those people too, where I had a ton of jobs, in a short period of time, and then I ended up getting into banking. But it's like, even when I was working at banking, I just didn't want a manager. I just didn't want to listen. I followed rules. I hit my goals. I did all of that. But it's just like, you just know deep down inside that you should not be doing this. Yeah. So sometimes you have to come to grips with, let me figure out how to transition out of being an employee and being an entrepreneur and starting my own business, because you'll feel more fulfilled and you'll be happier waking up every morning. And I think that's something that you pointed out. You knew, doing 13 jobs in 2 years, you had to know that this is not for me. I need to start my own business and, create my own time.
Yeah. And it's, they say there's God continues to show you the same problem until you figure it out. Evidently he had to show it to me like 13 times to figure it out. So again, maybe not that bright, but we've moved into a world to where it is that we romanticize being an entrepreneur now.
Correct. So I'll say that. Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Correct. Don't get it twisted. This is not fun, and it can be, but it is usually not, and it will require more from you than you think that you have. But for those people, it is that this is what they're meant to be. The reality is it feels inauthentic and disingenuous for me to try to put myself into something to where it is that I show up to a job and work for somebody else every day. tried to do that because I thought that that's what normal people were supposed to do. I had a wife, we were a growing family, we had children. I thought that I needed to be responsible. I needed to have health insurance. I needed to have that little badge on my, thing that got me in the door and all that, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it was not me. And the more I tried to force that, the more it kind of revealed to me that I was meant for something different. And so the entrepreneurship path, I think, gets romanticized now because of the culture it is that we are in. Not everybody's meant to be a number one. There's plenty of people that can be a number two or a number three and still kick ass. But if it is a part of your ethos and there is something there calling you to do so, you need to figure out a way to light that spark and give it some attention.
Agreed. I'll talk about this, like social media has just changed everything.
Yeah.
Right. So people are relying on social media. People are posting all these different things, and people think like being an entrepreneur is such a great and it's not easy at all. Like there's days, the highs and lows, the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. It can get to you, but you have to have the stomach for it. And if you don't, being an entrepreneur will eat you alive. So you can't really, like you said, go off of what you see and feel like, hey, I want to go do that. Because if you don't have the stomach for it, it's going to be hard for you. So then how did you transition out of being an employee once you realized it wasn't for you to doing what you're doing right now as a business owner?
Incredible amounts of whiskey, like just coping. No, just kidding. How did you?
Hey, but I understand.
Again, it goes back to that time to where you just start. And, I say that rather flippantly, but the reality is at some period of time, like you said, it is that you can think about all these kind of things. And eventually you got to take a step forward. Eventually you got to step off the ledge. Eventually you got to do that. And depending upon where it is that you are in life, that doesn't necessarily need to be that tomorrow, after listening to this, tomorrow you walk in, you tell your boss to F off, you quit your job, throw all your papers off the desk and go home to your wife and go, guess what, baby, today's the day, right? She's going to kill you, right? Like maybe don't do that, or at least talk to her first. So there are ways it is that you can maybe start a side hustle. It is and do a couple of little things it is to kind of test the waters a little bit, while maybe not giving up totally the responsibilities that you have if you've got a wife and kids and a number of things there, right? Like cutting that off and going straight into the deep end works for somebody, and for some people that scares them to death. Mm-hmm. So be thoughtful and pragmatic in a degree of kind of judiciousness about how it is that you do that. But the point is that eventually you're going to have to start. You're going to have to get uncomfortable. And I think the thing that most people need to remind themselves of constantly when you're starting, whether you've been in this thing for 5 years, 20 years, or 5 minutes, is you're going to fall on your face. You're going to screw up. You're going to have a deal go shitty. You're going to piss somebody off. You're not going to deliver, whatever it is, despite how hard you try. And that's okay, right? There needs to be something here that I heard years ago that I loved that says that excellence is the standard, but grace is the word. Mm-hmm. Right? I have a standard to how it is that I want to deliver, perform, and show up. But I'm also human. And so I know that if I gave everything and I didn't deliver the best that I have, to give myself a little bit of grace, it is so I can show up tomorrow and try again.
Agreed. People think they have to be perfect. And it's like
on Instagram, everybody's perfect.
Everyone's perfect, right?
Everybody's so good looking and got a jet and all this other crap, and it's 99% of it's garbage, right?
99%, because most people that make money aren't out there posting that kind of stuff on Instagram. Like they're just not, because they don't have the time, first of all, but they're just not interested in showing that kind of stuff off.
Exactly.
I know one person that does it, but he's doing it for marketing, right? That's because, braggadocious. But that's because he knows that is what gets people to buy into what he's trying to sell, right? Yeah. But for the most part, billionaires and multimillionaires are not doing that.
They are not.
So then I would say, what would be obviously you want them to start. Is the biggest thing to do is just start. I know when I left, I ended up having a pipeline of deals in my pipeline before I left. Did you have something like that before you left the job, or you kind of had money saved up, or what'd you do?
A little bit. I mean, I was transitioning out at the time when I really went independent from kind of a corporate real estate deal into kind of a smaller independent real estate. And then it was just, Jeremy Inc. Mm-hmm. And so I knew a few people and had some connections, but I didn't have like a pipeline of, 20, 50, 100, 200 grand. It is kind of waiting for me. Mm-hmm. And at the time I knew who I was. and what I was capable of, and kind of was just full of piss and vinegar, and a lot of stupidity to not know what I didn't know. I think the most fortunate thing it is that I had at the time, if I think about it now, is that I had a wife that believed in me unconditionally. And whereas, everybody else might have thought I was crazy, she thought I was the coolest thing since sliced bread. And if you're out there and you have a spouse that believes in you like that, do not undervalue that. And if you're out there and you have a spouse that maybe isn't quite there, that's okay too. It's your job. It is to earn that level of respect and to prove to them what it is that you could do, right? And that's that working hard too. So
that was my next question. You just answered it, so I don't even have to go into it, because I was wondering about your spouse, because you mentioned having a couple businesses with her, but you also mentioned, like, I have friends that have experiences where they're trying to start a business and their wife is just like, basically you can't do it or you don't have the ability. Yeah. So you basically have to earn the right to be able to, do what it is that you're doing, especially if you have a spouse who is not a believer just yet.
Yeah.
So I was curious.
And that's the reality is that, it should be the fact that whatever I do, my wife supports me unconditionally. Whatever she does, I support her unconditionally. That should be the norm. Fortunately,
it's not.
It's kind of not, more often than not, which is a shame. And so if you're out there and you're trying to build a business, you're trying to start something, you're trying to get better, you're trying to do, get in shape, make more money, start a business, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The reality is that your family, your circle, your parents, your spouse, your whatever it is, they know you as you for the past year, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, however long it is that they've known you. And now you've made a decision that says, you know what, I'm not that anymore. I made a decision that I'm going to be this. I'm going to be rich, trim, fit, and sexy. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do whatever it is. And when you get up and you start going to the gym and they're like, I'm going to get fit, and I'm going to lose 20 pounds, and I'm going to do all these kinds of things or whatever it is. And they're like, man, I saw your fat ass eating ice cream on the couch last night. Now you're fit? Come on, man, get out of here. Or, hey, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And you're going to be like, you were just with the boys talking shit all week last week. Come on, right? You haven't done anything yet to earn that level of respect and belief.
Right.
And so it might not be their fault that you haven't earned that level of respect yet. That's okay. So don't hold it against them. Just recognize that and try to earn that every day.
Correct.
I show up at the gym every day. I do this every day. I'm reading a book. I'm going to a seminar. I'm doing whatever it is that you're doing. You earn that little bits of respect. And once you do that for a month or 2 months or a quarter or 6 months, I guarantee you, if you are consistent there, your spouse's attitude will change.
100%. That goes back to what you said in the beginning. You had a track record. You had to develop that track record for people to trust you and give you a bunch of money. Same thing if you've been a person that had a job forever, or you were a bum or whatever the case is, and then all of a sudden you want to be this like Superman. Yeah, the track record's not there for them to be like, I have faith that this person is going to be able to do this. Yeah. You have to earn that. You have to show people that you can. Even going and raising money from the rich uncle, they had to see you do your deals a couple of times before they gave you the money, right? At least for me, that was my situation. Yeah. So it wouldn't be any different in your household. Like, they know you and they believe you to be the person that you were. You got to show them that the person that you're becoming or whatnot. And you can't you can't be in your feelings about if they don't like what you're doing, because first of all, it's about you more than anything, but you're trying to get the buy-in from your family and whoever else. But first of all, you got to believe in yourself. That's where you should start. And then, like he said, you build the trust from that point on.
Yeah, perfectly said.
So then I will say, I always ask this. We talked about the book in the back earlier on. What 3 books would you advise people to read to get to where you are, or to just even, maybe not on your level, but a level under you, to transition out from wherever space they're in?
Yeah. I think anybody's level, right? So somebody that's perceived as an expert, that expert is a beginner to somebody else, right? So there's levels to all of this stuff, right? I don't feel like I've even begun to scratch the surface of what it is that I feel like I should be, or who I'm becoming, or otherwise. I love reading books, audiobooks, and podcasts. I probably get 2 to 3 hours a day of audiobooks and podcasts in between the gym and the car and home and after work and all that kind of thing. The last couple that I've really enjoyed, number one, and I've probably given this book out 25 times, is a book called Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. So it's a great read. It's a great audiobook. So whatever you like to do. If you're an audiobook fan, McConaughey narrates it, so you get that all right. You get that whole thing in there, which is cool. But it is a great read about the fact of sometimes God puts kind of green lights, and I didn't want to do what it is that I thought was normal. I was just kind of going to follow this path and see where it is that it took me. And he does an extraordinary storytelling job about kind of following green lights in his life. It's a really, really good read. If anybody does not have that book, I'm sure Andre will share contacts. Send it to me. I will send you the book. It's really good. Another one is called, I believe it's called Whatever It Takes, and it's by Stephen Schwarzman. So Stephen Schwarzman is the founder of Blackstone. And one of the things that comes out of that book is he used to be the president of Lehman Brothers and did 10 or $20 billion worth of deals way back in the 80s before he started Blackstone. And it talks about the kind of progression and movement into how private equity started. And he and Pete Peterson left after selling to American Express, after doing billions and billions of dollars worth of deals. And with all of their experience, all of their connections, all of, a Rolodex of being able to get anybody on the phone, they start Blackstone, that we know today is one of the largest investors in the world. They sent out letters, because that's how you had to do it in the old school days, kids. They sent out letters to 450 of their largest investors, and not a single person responded.
Wow. And
so he tells the story. He's like, the post office is not dependable. They're like letters. So they sent them out again, and not a single person responded. And so following that, they had a new meeting with a new investor 7 days a week, 365 days a year, as Stephen Schwarzman and Pete Peterson, better Rolodexes than anybody listening to this, I assure you. And not a single person gave them money, because this Blackstone's kind of a new thing. It's like, Andre, you and I have known each other for 20 years. We've done billions of dollars together at Lehman Brothers. Yeah, but Blackstone's kind of new. And I don't know. You're like, what? And so it was that idea that came of this, is that everything is new until it isn't.
Correct.
And so those guys could have quit anytime they wanted. They had more money than God. They didn't need to start anything, but they just kept going. And eventually, like the water in the rock, it kind of breaks, and it broke for them. And then their business kind of took off. Those are two that have been really good for me. The third is Paulo Coelho. I'd go read The Alchemist, if you have not read that. It's an extraordinary story about finding your own kind of personal legend, like what is important to you and where you want to go, and what is that map and path towards crafting that life that's just perfect for Andre or just perfect for Jeremy. It's a great classic book. Those would be the three that come to my head today.
The Alchemist has been recommended a couple of times, so that's obviously, and it's a really good book. So pick that one up for sure. I like the other two. I've never heard of those, but those are, especially if you're trying to do what Jeremy's doing, that would be great to go down that path, get those books. So then obviously, I don't know how many people are going to be reaching out to you for them to get some checks, but how can, anyone listening reach out to you, I don't know, for some conversation or to follow you, in your journey on what you're doing right now?
Yeah. So, would love to hear from anybody. If we can help, we're happy to do so, whether it's invest or just be friends. So you can find us on social channels. So from a company standpoint, it's JB Capital. It's pretty easy to find. If you want to look at me, look at the Jeremy B. Hill across any social channels, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn or otherwise. Pretty easy to find there. And yeah, would absolutely love to hear from your audience. And if we can connect and we can help anybody out, we'd love to.
One last question I'm thinking about too, I forgot to ask. I know you said you guys do deals 5 to 10 million. Mm-hmm. What type of deals do you like investing in? I know we talked about real estate, but what is some specific, anyone listening, if they did want to reach out to you because they did have a deal that fits your criteria?
Sure. So on the real estate side of our house, we're primarily kind of, on the residential side, and that can be single family, multifamily developments, entitlements, build to rent, that kind of thing. We do some of that, and I do some industrial. I'm not great at office. I'm great from kind of a debt restructure if it happens to be office, but not great on office and not great on retail. So the single family, multifamily, residential, and the industrial side, on the real estate side, I'm pretty good at. On the corporate capital side, really good at kind of software technology, healthcare, health tech, and professional services businesses. We've done a few direct to consumer businesses. I have a lot of exposure there. I'm so at that. But healthcare, software, technology enabled services we're pretty good at. And then, we've done a number of accounting firms, law firms, CPA practices, that kind of thing. The growing professional services side, we've done pretty well at.
So do you get money from family offices, or it doesn't really matter? You just all over?
Yeah, so a couple of ways. When we are acting as an advisor or banker to place capital, we look at a number of private funds across the country. There's thousands of them, but they're each nuanced to a certain little, we only do this, that, or the other thing. We look at those. We look at family offices as well, for more the institutionalized family office, not the local rich guy that's got 50 million. He's a family office. Sort of. It sounds cool, but you're not really, right? We're looking at the larger family offices that are kind of 500 million to 5 billion with single shareholders. We've done well there. Family offices are attractive, but very nuanced. There's sayings in the family office that you have an investment committee of 10 and a decision committee of 1. Right? Because they'll go through tons of work, and then the owner will come in and go, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We're investing in coffee cups. And you're like, oh, what are we doing? Right? That happens all the time. So
then my last question for sure, this is about me. Everyone knows that I have InvestFar, which is a real estate tech company. If we were trying to raise, let's say, a Series A or maybe a seed round of $5 million, would that be something that you would do? Because we've brought VCs on before. So is that something like you guys do? If I reached out to you to try to go find capital, you guys get on the cap table, or how does that work?
So for us, I don't do early stage startup good idea on a cocktail napkin. So again, not knowing where InvestFar is, right?
Correct.
Just ignorance on my part. Like I don't know the business story, how much money you've raised, where revenue is, or any engagement like that. So ignorance on my part there. But earlier stage stuff I've just never been super good at. We might be able to be friendly neighborhood advisor because I know a lot of people in that space. We may be able to do something there that I can make some thoughtful introductions, but that wouldn't be capital that we invest off our balance sheet. I'm just not good at that.
Oh, that makes sense. So then you would be able to connect a person to people that might be interested in that space. Got it.
Yeah, or at least be able to help them think through some thoughts and questions about how they're telling their story, how they're presenting, what kind of audience it is. Because the thing that people need to understand when they're raising capital is the other side of that capital. There's 100 flavors of vanilla ice cream, right? How VC is going to look at it versus this, versus that, versus something else is completely different. So,
love it. Jeremy, it's been great. I appreciate it. Like all the information. I hope you all found it helpful because he dropped a lot of gems, especially about, relationships and how that looks and transitioning out from one thing to the next. You don't have to be rich. We talk about it all the time. Just educate yourself on what it is you're trying to do and put the reps in. Hit the gym. You can't get swole by going to the gym once every 3 months, right? So, Jeremy, thank you again for coming on. And until next time, take care.
Enjoyed it. Thanks, Andre.
All right.